Hey, namaste. Back for part 2 of Ayurveda for Stress Eradication. So remember, in the last part, you want to watch these in sequence. When I do a series of videos like this, you really want to watch in sequence because I build on each one. So the first video of the series was the Ayurveda basics. And in this video, I discussed this 12-hour cycle from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and how you, guarantee you, are living out of sync with that cycle. It's a natural cycle where your body has certain periods where the brain may be optimal, where your body, your physical activity, your muscles, your musculature will be optimal. And so you want to actually consider that cycle. And then the next video was this top half right here where I discussed the body types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These are Ayurvedic principles. They are not really abstract things. When I made the analogy of Vata with winter or fall, when it's getting colder and drier, and I connected that with how you respond, if you're a Vata type, how you may respond to stress, to life, etc. That is a real tangible thing. The same thing with the Pitta, the summer, the hot fire one. This is probably where I would be my predominant type. And then Kapha. But even if one of these, related to the previous video, even if one of these is a predominant type, it does not mean that that type has to dominate you. And what we're going to discuss today is how we do things. In this case, we're going to focus a little bit on food, but this also relates to our habits. I'll give a few examples, how we do things to stack things against ourselves, against our favor. And I'll give the example of stacking heat versus cold. So you want to be really mindful. So again, what we're discussing here are natural cycles of nature and of man. You're a child of nature, and within you, within your cells, within the dynamics of your body, your biochemistry, your metabolism, your psychology, any aspect of the multidimensional layers of a human being, they're connected to these cycles. So we're right now focusing on cycles that are closer to us. I started with the cycles of the body, then we'll discuss these broader cycles, the seasonal cycles and how they're tied to us. I talked a little bit about that in the last video. There's even cosmological cycles, which we won't talk about today. So as we evolve and progress and expand in consciousness, we're able to become more in tune and go beyond our surrounding nature or natural scape and go towards the cosmos. If you look at our ancestors, the ancients, they did exactly this. They were able to bring the cosmos to the earth and back. And you're able to do it as well as you expand and bring and are in sync with nature, with the cosmos itself. It's going to bring about very powerful effects. So at Rama's Rooted Tree, I focus on enhancing your ability to be stress and disease free. How are you going to do that if you're doing things that are bringing you out of balance, that are pushing you to the extremes? All right, so in this video, I'll be talking about what foods should you eat or should you consume so that you're not putting your body type out of order. So if you go back to the previous video in the Ayurveda for Stress Eradication Part 1, you're going to see that I discussed a number of different details about this. So one example that I give with regards to this is just consider it in terms of seasons. So look at what season you're in. Is it summertime where you live? Is it wintertime? Is it spring? This really matters, because even if I resonate more, let's say with Pitta, summer, I resonate more with Pitta, summer. I live also in a warm climate. I live right now in Miami. There's a huge difference between me living in Miami and me living in Canada, let's say, where it's already starting to get cold. My fire may help me counter some of those seasonal effects to some extent. But if I'm not careful, those cold, dry, those seasonal effects, that Vata type can actually predominate and affect my psychology and affect my health as well. And of course, things can be thrown off. I remember when I moved from Puerto Rico to the Northeast when I was younger, when I was 22, when I started graduate school. And I ended up getting triggered towards kapha, falling into some depressive-like states. My body really wasn't reacting well. I remember that winter was leading to a lot of drying that I couldn't handle, I wasn't used to. And so this is very important, and you want to keep this in mind. To be in balance, you have to keep in mind not only the cycles of seasons and the cycles of the climate, but also your own inner cycles that I discussed in the Ayurveda Basics video. So why does this help you handle stress and disease better? Because you're keeping your body at an optimum. Whenever you're in balance, it makes you much more resistant to any outside stressor. Obviously, there's other things that are involved, particularly internal locus of control that I describe in The Art of Stress-Free Living, which you can get a copy below. So if we look at the Vata type, you can think of it as the wintertime kind of phenomenon. Nature gives you what you should eat. And I'm not saying that you should just exclusively eat nuts, let's say, and seeds, which are an ideal food that's harvested during the fall, early winter times. And these are foods that are high in essential fatty acids, that are warm and nurturing and are rebuilding. So foods that are high in these essential fatty acids, the good fatty acids. And if you want to learn more about that, I suggest you go to medium.com at Rama's Rooted Tree. You can get the link below. There's a ton of articles there. They're all absolutely free for you. And of course, previous content here. Remember, I'm putting a lot of really high valuable content. This is content that people pay thousands of dollars to access. I'm giving it to you for free. I'm giving just open knowledge. And if you engage with me on social media at Rama's Rooted Tree, or here on this channel, you leave a comment, I will respond. I've done videos for people before when they reach out to me directly that are targeted for them with an idea of broadening the horizon. So just keep that in mind. All right, so you want to eat foods that are going to be warm and inviting and nurturing. Why is that? Because during the winter time, you're having to fight the effects of cold and dryness. You're being worn out. You need something that's rebuilding and calming. And so foods at the end of the day that are warm, that are going to elevate some of that natural heat within you, are going to be recommended. So remember that the crucial thing here is don't stack cold over cold. Don't stack heat over heat. I have this problem. Typically you have somebody who's a certain body type and they tend to do things, and I think I mentioned this in the previous video, they tend to do things that actually exacerbate their body type and their energy type and their psychology. They may be a type A that at the end of the day, they go run 5 miles when they've been working really hard, and that type of personality is going to be very competitive and driven. They're workaholics, they work really hard. So you want to actually be very mindful of that. Listen to your body and what it needs. And so I remember being a Pitta type, I still do like spicy food, but I don't eat it as I used to, because it just takes somebody who's already very driven, who's very, very fiery and powerful, and it pushes them towards an extreme. So I've learned to do certain techniques that help bring water and the moon aspect of the physiology of the body, the cooling aspects rather than the kind of sun, the fire aspects within me, for health and well-being. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Of course, don't stack heat as well, which is what I was doing. If you stack heat, it can lead to inflammation. If you have inflammation, let's say you sprain the joint or something, then that excessive heat may be damaging. Remember, foods are not just for nurturing you, giving you nutrients and building blocks and things of that nature. They have an impact as well on your psychology. There's certain foods that I don't eat because they get in the way of meditation, of higher yogic practices. And so you really want to understand this. And if you have more questions on that, let me know and I can kind of expand on that a little further. So you want to be very careful with that when you're choosing your foods. You're choosing your habits, what type of exercise you're going to do. Oftentimes people would benefit more from the exact opposite of what they think they need. So that example that I gave you of a person that's very driven, very competitive, workaholic, really stressed out, sometimes prone to bouts of anger, already kind of inflamed, on the verge of a burnout that's actually going to cause them to age faster. So that type of person really, at the end of the day, really needs something more relaxed and something more controlled. Of course, developing a meditation practice would be key, as well as practicing some of the yoga techniques, that the way that I teach it in my programs, where it actually accentuates your control, it accentuates relaxation, creativity, etc. It's really going to reinforce what you want, which is to be able to develop greater attention span so that you can reach the higher practices with success, namely meditation and then beyond that. All right, so if we're looking at PETA or the summer to go on the opposite side of the spectrum, then we want to avoid overheating. So we're already exposed to heat. We don't want to overdo it. This is the equivalent of living somewhere where it's warm. Like me growing up on an island in Puerto Rico, or being now in Miami, Florida, or winter is the equivalent of living somewhere where it's cold. Take that into consideration when you're making your decisions on what to eat. And I'm not saying during the wintertime just eat nuts and soups and stews and maybe something warm and spicy, something like that. No, but you want to balance it. So for example, if you're a Vata type or it's wintertime, you don't want to be overdoing it with cold foods. So having that cold smoothie in the morning. You know, people often think about this. It's the summertime, they go to Starbucks, let's say, and they get a hot coffee. They may be drinking a lot of hot beverages. So you really want to balance it so that you're not stacking the same thing on top of each other. You don't want to be drinking hot beverages and then have a spicy meal and it's warm out, or you're a PETA type. It's not that you can't eat it, it's just that you have to limit it and you have to counterbalance it with foods that are meant for that season. Research what foods grow during certain times, which ones are harvested in the spring. Like, for example, I mentioned some here. These are nature's antidote to that season or that type. Kapha. So leafy greens like kale, excellent for the springtime. In Florida, sometimes it's kind of spring weather when somewhere else may be summer and maybe winter. So those are things that you want to consider. Really be in tune with your environment, assess the climate, the weather, what season is it, what body type you are, so that you can better feed yourself. If it's that time, maybe some sprouts, some berries, some cherries. These are examples of foods that nature offers to you. And of course, if you follow my work, you know that you want to try to eat as much as possible whole plant-based foods exactly as nature offers them to you. Because the moment you start to alter them is the moment that you start to change them from an asset to a problem. Something's going to lead to potential disease and aging and things of that nature. And then lastly, we have PETA. So again, nature offers cooling remedies, cooling fruits and vegetables like melons and cucumber. So if it's winter time and I'm going to the supermarket and I'm like, I live in Colorado, let's say, and it's the winter time and I go to the supermarket, and of course we live now in an international market, so you often can go to the supermarket, especially in a place like the United States, and you can get foods that are not in season because they're being grown somewhere else where they are in season. And so we sometimes have the tendency to eat foods when they're out of season that may not be our best food to eat. So balance yourself exactly like nature does. Animals do this. So if you think back of humans a long time ago, when they were out there gathering and farming, what foods were they eating? Were they eating foods that were not available? No. It's impossible. They could not keep foods from the spring all the way through the winter. It's just not reasonable, and therefore they would not have eaten that. They would eat foods that nature is providing as the remedy, as the cure, as what's going to keep you in a balanced state. All right? So in future videos, what I'm going to be talking about is building a little bit of a plan, like a daily plan that you could follow to be able to integrate this into your daily life. And it will include when to eat, what things to practice during the daytime, things of that nature. So there's probably going to be a part 3 and a part 4 of this, so you want to stay tuned for that in the coming day or two, or the next week or two. Okay? I hope that served you well. I hope you have a beautiful day. Take care. Namaste.